So if you're into perfumery, even a little bit, you've probably come across the word amber at least once or twice. I find amber to be one of the most misunderstood fragrance notes, or more specifically fragrance accords, despite its ubiquity, despite its appearance in virtually every sweet cologne out there. Today I'm bringing you guys what I feel to be a perfect representation of the amber accord. This is Ambre Sultan from Serge Lutens. Stick around for this one. Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Scent Review. Tonight I'm going over just an awesome amber-based fragrance. This is Ambre Sultan from Serge Lutens. Now, while amber as an accord is found in like so many perfumes out there, colognes, fragrances, especially the sweeter ones, I find this one is one of those fragrances that just does amber so perfectly, and I can't wait to get right into this one. So let's do it, shall we? So first of all, I just want to touch a little bit on what amber actually is and what it isn't. So amber, in the context of perfumery, is actually an accord, not a note. So a note, for example, is just a simple component of a fragrance, like vanilla is a note, bay leaf is a note, but an accord is a combination of notes that gives a different scent profile. So for example, an amber accord is a combination of different notes that combine to create the smell of amber. So amber in the context of perfumery is usually an accord that consists of the notes of benzoin, vanilla, sometimes patchouli, sometimes labdanum. So to put it simply, most of the time, most renditions of amber smell like dark vanilla with some resinous incense in the bottom, maybe a slight bit of powderiness as well. To put it very simply, that's kind of what amber smells like. So real amber that actually occurs in nature is fossilized tree resin. Real natural amber is not traditionally a perfume ingredient. It's more so used to manufacture gemstones. And if you've ever seen those little amber rocks out there with the fossilized insects inside them, that's another example of real amber. Now, like I said, the real amber that occurs naturally, not typically used for perfumery, although in recent years some independent fragrance houses have started to use, naturally occurring amber in their fragrances, but that's a different thing than what we traditionally consider amber in the perfume world. So to simplify it immensely, when you hear amber in the context of perfumery, it's that resinous, dark vanilla, slightly incensey, slightly powdery smell, and it's a fantasy accord. It's not naturally occurring. It's 9 times out of 10 synthesized in a laboratory, although in theory, one could take natural vanilla, natural labdanum, and natural benzoin to create, technically natural amber. But most of the time, the ingredients that are combined to create the amber accord are laboratory synthesized, some to a much higher quality than others. But amber, in one form or another, exists in pretty much every sweet cologne out there. It's absolutely ubiquitous. If you're into perfumery at all, you have absolutely smelled amber before, even though you might not realize it. I find this one here, Ambre Sultan, is one of the most fantastic representations of it in all of perfumery. Starting off with the box here, black. It's got kind of a vinyl finish. The box itself is made of cardboard. Minimalist, I like it. Solid black. Serge Lutens on the front here. You can see the name and the company symbol. On the bottom, it's the barcode and the batch number. Opening up the box, you can see inside there's a protective flap that you pull in order to release the inner box, which houses the bottle. Now, the bottle itself, I'm not going to go too in depth about it as far as looks go. Now, the most important part is this. If you purchase a bottle of any Serge Lutens fragrance, it's going to appear in the box like this, with the spherical cap. This spherical cap screws off. Now, the atomizers actually come separately inside the same box. So what you have to do is you unscrew this spherical cap and you put the atomizer in like this. And also the atomizer has its own cap that you just click on like so. But just so that you're aware, so that you don't feel duped. That's just how they come. You're not being duped. That's just the way it is. So I'm gonna get a spray out of this now. Pretty decent atomizer. Very nice, actually. Oh my God, right off the bat, this is just so fantastic. The notes that I get are the following. In the top, I get some bay leaf, oregano. In the mid, I get some benzoin, myrrh, and amber. In the dry down, I get some amber, sandalwood, galbanum, and a touch of incense. So right off the top, we don't get amber. In fact, in the top, it's very spicy, savory. I get bay leaf. It's a very green herbal spice. Very, very, very nice. I cook with bay leaf all the time. Fantastic. Now, if you're thinking, oh my God, oregano in a fragrance, that sounds very off-putting. If you've ever smelled, for example, Interlude Man by Amouage, the oregano in that one is very heavy, a little bit overpowering if you ask me. The oregano in this one here, not nearly as intense. In fact, the oregano in this is very agreeable, and I think it absolutely works very well in the opening here. So in the mid, we get some benzoin, myrrh, and of course the amber. The myrrh gives it kind of like a sharp, piney characteristic. And the amber in this one starts out a little bit powdery, a little bit soft and warm and sweet. It almost is a little bit doughy. So in the dry down here is where this scent becomes absolutely magical. You get more of that amber, but it starts to become more balsamic, and there's definitely a touch of dark vanilla. This is very, very nice in the bottom here. It's sweet, but it's not cloying at all. It's perfectly blended. And I get a touch of smoky incense as well, which could be coming from the benzoin or the myrrh, but it maintains that resinous characteristic. Just fantastic along with that sweetness. And in the far, far, far dry down, several hours after application, the galbanum remains. Now the galbanum is a herbal metallic note. It smells a little bit like metal. It's the longest lasting note in this to my nose. So this fragrance here, upon initial spray, you might not really get much of that amber. Like I said, it opens up very spicy, very herbal, savory, very interesting combination, but man, does it ever work. So it's spicy, it's herbal, and it turns sweet. It's deep, it's resinous, it's balsamic, but it never gets cloying. A lot of times when amber is included in a fragrance, it's just there to beef up the dry down. It's there to make the scent sweeter. It's there to prevent the top notes from wearing off too soon. That's another really common use for amber, is to prevent top notes from dissipating too quickly. But the way the amber is mixed in this fragrance here is absolutely phenomenal. It's not overpowering. The scent is definitely all about the amber without making it too overbearing. A lot of times, like I said, amber can be super sweet, super cloying in fragrances. Not here. And as far as like the blending, the quality of the blending of this amber accord, it honestly doesn't get much better than this. So if you're an amber lover, you're definitely gonna wanna check this one out. Starts off spicy, gets warm towards the bottom, resinous with that myrrh and that benzoin, and becomes a little bit smoky at the very end while maintaining that soft warmth. I almost don't want to call it a sweetness, it's more of a warmth, because sweetness to me, I don't know, a lot of times implies some sort of syrupiness, some sort of candied characteristic, some sort of, gourmand characteristic. There's nothing gourmand in this. Although it is very warm, you can detect a little bit of that dark vanilla in the bottom. I want to say it's more vanillic than just pure vanilla, right? It has nuances of vanilla, but you don't really get a full-on vanilla note, if that makes any sense. And I think that's perfect. I'm not a huge fan of sweet, sweet fragrances. I like a little bit of sweetness. I like warmth, definitely, but I don't do those cloyingly sweet ones. At least not very often. There are a few exceptions, but most of the time I avoid those cloying gourmands. This one here, I find, encapsulates almost everything I like in perfumery. It's got the resins in there, the benzoin, and of course the myrrh. It's got that smoky incense, a little bit of smoky incense in the dry down. It's got those spices, and it's got that warmth. It's almost like a perfect fragrance. If you're a fan of amber, like I said, you gotta check this one out. Even if you're only really used to designer fragrances, if you've ever smelled a sweet designer fragrance, I guarantee you've smelled amber, but lower quality than this. I'll say that, just bluntly. This amber is super high quality. And honestly, if you've only ever been accustomed to like designer ambers, I don't know if that's really a great realistic representation of the actual amber accord. I think it's done just very, very well in this one. I'm not trying to come off as a niche snob, but I've never come across a designer fragrance that does amber quite like this. I don't know if this scent is going to be for everybody, but it's not polarizing. I don't think it's quite polarizing, but it's interesting. I don't necessarily think a beginner is going to appreciate this because it's just not It's not, you know, in the realm of what's ubiquitous currently in designer fragrances without being totally experimental or abstract. This stays grounded while being elegant, you know, opulent, extravagant, a bunch of other adjectives. Just a fantastic fragrance here. I honestly think this one is quite versatile. I think it could be applied to romantic, close quarter situations just as well as it can be applied to formal situations. I would wear this in the office. I'd wear this to a formal event. I'd definitely wear it on a date. It's warm and sensual. Although right at the beginning it can be a little bit sharp and spicy, sure. So if I was gonna wear this for a date, I'd spray this on probably half an hour to an hour before I left my house. But I think you could just wear this all around. It's versatile, yet it's so unique. I think, you know, it might lean towards cooler weather, but I would have no problem wearing this in the summer. I think it's just as appropriate for nighttime use as it is daytime use, although there might be a slight dark edge to this because of those resins, you know, the dry incense, and eventually that becomes a little bit of a smoky incense in the dry down, plus that dark vanilla. One of the best amber fragrances in the game. The performance, by the way, nothing to sneeze at either. The projection is good. For an hour and a half, it's almost an arm's length projection. So, you know, not a beast mode, but it's above average projection. But, you know, where this really shines, as usual, is the longevity. The longevity is 8-9 hours on my skin. So, you know, performance not an issue here. And something great about this one, I consider this to be a high quality niche product. You know, the price is pretty reasonable. So for example, right now in North America, FragranceNet has this for $101 US for a 100 milliliter bottle. But here in Europe, it's a little bit more expensive than it is in the North American market, but worth every penny. Like I said, if you like warm fragrances, try this one out. It's one of the best representations of amber as far as I'm concerned. So guys, that's been my review of Ambre Sultan by Serge Lutens. Hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, keep it real.